The Gettysburg Address is the most memorized speech in American history. Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address on November 19, 1863, at the site of the Battle of Gettysburg. It was meant to serve as a reminder of what our great nation was built upon. Although Lincoln himself thought his Gettysburg Address was a failure, it later became a literary masterpiece and can be considered as a foundation of the American Civil Rights Movement that would occur 100 years later. Union troops won the Battle of Gettysburg on July 3, 1863. This victory marked a crucial turning point in the Civil War, and it was also the bloodiest battle of the war. Union lost around 23,000 troops, while there were 28,000 Confederate soldiers who were either killed or wounded. For the remainder of the war, the land that the Battle of Gettysburg was fought on served as a makeshift hospital and morgue. The main purpose of the Gettysburg Address was to dedicate a cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The cemetery was to be named the Soldiers' National Cemetery, and it was to be the burial place for all Union soldiers who died at the Battle of Gettysburg. The address was also to remind the citizens of the United States what the Declaration of Independence stood for. It was also used to instill hope that the Civil War was worth fighting and that the remaining troops should continue with their efforts. Abraham Lincoln was one of 5 scheduled speakers to address the crowd that day. The main speaker was a noted orator named Edward Everett. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809 in Hodgenville, Kentucky. He was named after his paternal grandfather Abraham. His father Thomas was a farmer, and his mother was Nancy Hanks. Lincoln had a younger brother named Thomas, who died as an infant, and an older sister named Sarah. After his wife's death, Thomas Lincoln then married Sarah Bush Johnston. Abe received less than 1 year of formal education in his lifetime. Honest Abe, as he would later be called, came to a full height of 6 feet 4 inches at the age of 19. The Lincoln family eventually settled in Illinois, where Abe met Mary Todd. Together, Mary and Abraham had 4 children: Robert Todd, Edward Baker, William Wallace, and Thomas, who was also referred to as Tad. Abe also took part in several famous and heated debates with his friend and colleague, Stephen A. Douglas. Lincoln's greatest role, however, would be as the President of the United States. Abraham Lincoln became the 16th president on March 4, 1861, and announced the start of the Civil War on April 12, 1861, after the firing on Fort Sumter, less than a month after his inauguration. On November 19, 1863, the day of the Gettysburg Cemetery dedication, President Abraham Lincoln was sick with bronchitis. When it came time to deliver his Gettysburg address, his voice was nearly non-existent. Without amplification available, most of the crowd was unaware that the president was even speaking. He later told his bodyguard, Ward Lemon, that he was a failure. Following the address, Lincoln left the stage, believing that he had failed to deliver an honorary speech. He felt that he had failed the people of his country. The media was generally not pleased with the Gettysburg Address either. Most newspapers gave it a horrendous review, while some newspapers said that it was the perfect dedication to the fallen soldiers. But little did either the newspapers or Lincoln know at the time that the Gettysburg Address would become the most memorized piece of literature in American history. Not until after Lincoln's death was his Gettysburg Address acclaimed as an example of a classic oratory for its powerful phrasing. Despite believing that he was a failure, Abraham Lincoln created one of the most historically important speeches ever delivered by an American. No one at the time imagined that it would have such an impact on the nation and its people. In his effort to preserve the Union during the Civil War, Lincoln assumed more power than any other president in our nation's history. Yet he guided our country through a dark period in American history and did it with a great hand of leadership and pride. It's unfortunate that Lincoln did not live long enough to see his nation heal its wound of war, that he died a violent death.